What is up, YouTube? This is Nanashi with a brand new deck profile video. This time I'll be showing you my brand new Utopia-Knightmare Spirit deck. For those of you who have seen earlier versions of this deck, you know that I've always used the Utopia system to some extent as a means of giving it something of a special power, even though it really never needed it in the first place. It just happened to have the ability to create these materials. And as it happens, Knightmare can use the exact same system. Though for most of you, you're fully aware of the fact that I hate splashing in generic tech engines into my decks, but there's actually a reason as to why I did it with this one. It was meant to prove a point of how easy it is to do the linking system. Let me show you what I got. Starting off with the monster lineup, and you'll see that it's actually been extremely simplified, we have a playset of a mono YuGiOh. Now I want to point out that every single one of the level 4 and lower spirit monsters that I run share one common effect, being that they cannot be special summoned, and at the end of the turn that they are normal summoned or flipped face up, they are returned to the hand. And mono YuGiOh's unique effect though says that as long as it's face up on the field, monster effects except for spirit monsters cannot be activated. While this doesn't do anything to continuous effects, the ability to stop activating effects is incredibly detrimental to a lot of decks out there, especially ones that happen to throw hand traps at me every 5 seconds for just doing so much as breathing. Next up, we have the playset of Aratama. Upon its normal summon, I can add any spirit monster from my deck to my hand. Incredibly valuable resource plays. I just kinda wish it wasn't deadlocked into a normal summon. And speaking of resource, we have the playset of Nikitama. During the turn that it's been normal summoned, I get to normal summon one spirit monster in addition to my regular normal summoner set. And if it happens to go to the graveyard by any means from anywhere, while I control a spirit monster, I get to draw a card. Then I have a pair of Yamato no Kami. I kinda want to put him to 3, but 2 seems to be the perfect number at the moment because otherwise he kinda dead draws. He is a spirit that can be special summoned from the hand, but I have to banish a spirit monster out of my graveyard to do it. Also, if he is able to destroy a monster in battle, I get to destroy a spell trap the opponent controls as well. With only 2200 attack points, he's not going to get over much, but it's more the fact that he can special summon himself that kinda matters in this particular variant of the deck. And then we finish up with a playset of Shino Baron Peacock and a playset of Shino Baroness Peacock. The Spirit Ritual Monsters. Now these guys have some common effects. You can ritual summon them with the same spell, and during the end phase of the turn that they've been ritual summoned, they return to the hand and leave behind a pair of tokens with 1500 attack and defense each, 4 stars. Now the unique effects are that Baron, when ritual summoned, can return up to 3 monsters on the opponent's side of the field to the hand, and if I am able to return even just 1, I can special summon a spirit from my hand, ignoring its summoning conditions. Shino Baroness returns up to 3 spell traps on the field to the deck, and in exchange I can special summon a spirit monster from my deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. You will see that I am missing 1 copy of Baroness, but I've already ordered it just hasn't shown up yet. Next up we have the spell lineup. Starting with a single Dark Hole, staple in pretty much every deck I own, purely because I can't afford Regeki right now. Pre-Preparation of Rites, which adds a ritual spell from my deck to my hand, and then a ritual monster whose name is listed on that spell from my deck or graveyard to my hand. A playset of Scapegoat, which is literally the only change I needed to make this deck able to link summon at base level. It is not that hard. A playset of the ritual spell Shinobird's Calling, which lists both Shino Baron and Shino Baroness on it, so you can search either one off of pre-prep. And in addition to being able to permit the ritual summon of either monster, it also lets you banish spirit monsters out of your graveyard for ritual cost. A playset of Trade-In, which lets you get rid of the ritual spirits you don't need at that moment to draw some cards. And a pair of Twin Twisters, just because I needed some generic spell trap removal. Then moving into the trap cards, we have a pair of Bottomless Trap Hole, generic removal, and since it banishes the card, it makes it a little bit harder to recover from that loss. A playset of a new trap card I found called Renewal of the World. It's part of the new Demise Ruin archetype. When you first activate it, you banish a ritual monster from your deck, and then you have the option to either add the ritual monster you banished back to your hand, or ritual summon it to the field by using a ritual monster as material of equal or greater level in your hand or on your field, or returning a ritual monster from your graveyard back to the deck. also the staple Solemn Warning, and a pair of Torrential Tribute. Next we move into the side deck, starting with a single copy of Nightmare Corruptor Ibli. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a huge fan of putting this card in the main deck because it kinda clogs my deck up a little bit if I happen to dead draw it. It's not that it has bad effects or anything, it's just I can't really use it to the extent that it should be used. When it's normal summoned, you can target a Link monster in your grave, special summon it, but only in a way that where one of its Link arrows points to her. And if she's used for Link material, it summons itself to the opponent's side of the field in defense mode. But whoever controls it cannot special summon monsters except for Link monsters, which actually does derail the spirit part of the deck a little bit. I do still have one copy of Izanami, or Imanatsu if you read your name backwards, who on normal summon can discard a card to add any spirit monster in your graveyard back to your hand. Also one copy of Shinobu Crane, who whenever a spirit monster is normal or special summoned during either player's turn, you can draw one card once per turn. A spare copy of Yamato no Kami. Like I said, I did want to put it to 3, but it's just not quite what I need. And a copy of Hino Kagusuchi, a monster that I honestly wish was slightly easier to use because his effect is surprisingly powerful. If he does battle damage to your opponent, then during their turn, right before they draw during their draw phase, they have to discard their entire hand. I do have a playset of Creature Swap though. It switches control of a monster I control and they control, and usually that means if I give them a spirit, then that goes right back to me, so I technically didn't lose out on any material. I also have one Monster Reborn in the event that I want to run it, but given that this deck's main prerogative is the spirit monsters, and they don't really have the ability to be special summoned in most cases, this card kinda became useless as far as the deck was concerned. I do have 2 MST, 1 Compulsory, 2 Fiendish Chain, and a Mirror Force. And then finally we finish up with the extra deck. First off, we have a single copy of Fairy Cheer Girl, which is pretty much the only consistent extra deck monster I've ever run in this deck. Also a pair of Utopia, who can detach a material to negate an attack, Utopia Prime, who stacks itself on top of Utopia, and one S39 Utopia, the Lightning, to stack on top of the Utopia Prime, who can double detach to make its attack points 5,000 during an attack, and who can prevent the activation of cards and effects during the battle phase. Then we get into the linking aspect of the deck, the part of the deck that I'm sure a lot of people are interested in seeing. I do run a pair of generic Link Spiders because there's more than enough tokens to warrant its use with both Scapegoat and the Peacocks. One Nightmare Mermaid. Now I do want to point out that every single Nightmare monster has 2 effects that are somewhat similar. On their summon, they have an effect that requires you to discard to activate, and if it happens to be co-linked, you get to draw right back off that effect. And as long as it's face up, an additional effect is active for linked and co-linked monsters. Mermaid's discard effect special summons a Nightmare monster from the main deck, but as I've said, I don't run any in the main deck because they kinda clog. But as long as it's face up, all non-co-linked monsters lose 1,000 attack and defense. Cerberus discards to destroy a monster in the main monster zone that was special summoned, and as long as it's face up, co-linked monsters cannot be destroyed by card effects. Nightmare Goblin's discard effect lets you get an additional normal summon to the zone that it points to, and as long as it's face up, any co-linked monsters cannot be targeted by card effects. Nightmare Phoenix's discard effect destroys a spell trap, and it protects all co-linked monsters from being destroyed by battle. Unicorn's discard effect returns a card on the field to the deck, and for every co-linked Nightmare monster with a different name on the board, you get to draw the card during your draw phase, instead of just 1. So with all 6 of them out, you get 6 cards. And Griffin, whom I actually summon less than any other monster in this deck, has a discard effect that says you can set a spell trap from your graveyard, but you cannot use it during the turn you set it, and all non-linked special summon monsters cannot activate their monster effects. And that is the deck. This deck is essentially a gigantic joke. It was meant to prove a point of how easy it is to do the linking system, with minimal changes to the main deck being a playset of Scapegoats and maybe a couple of additional resource cards. And since this deck has no extra deck to speak of beforehand, I don't feel anywhere near as guilty about putting this stuff in this deck because there's nothing to take away from. My biggest gripe from using the Nightmare engine in every other deck is taking away from what makes those decks special and interesting. I mean, sure, there are some decks that need linking help, but some decks don't actually need the Nightmare stuff. If you want to run that, be my guest, but I feel guilty putting all that extra stuff in there if it doesn't have room, and you have to take away from what makes that deck's specific variety of extra deck monsters special. I thank you guys for watching the video, and if you can think of any ways that I can improve this linking and accessing spirit deck, feel free to let me know. In the meantime, this has been Nanashi, signing out.